Live.
My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Bokonjre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Focus on Liberia. For Liberia, Liberia. For Liberia, yeah, 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 yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday. It's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs. Hey, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another section of Focus on Liberia. I am your co-host, Gabriel Carter. Today's topic we have for you will be on dual currency, or the pros and cons of dual currency. So we'd like to explore the advantages and disadvantages of having either dual currency or a single currency. And specifically what we want to look at is the case with Liberia. So in the studio with me today, I have Jimmy, Wonder, Flomo, and we have Mr. Willett joining us. Hopefully, if he can figure out his the issue with his phone. So today's going to be very interesting. It's a very the good thing about today's topic is that it is finance, and we have all finance and economics people on the show. So this is going to be a very interesting topic. It's something that we realize needs to be talked about, because this is a scenario that we're in, especially for Liberia, and it's although there's other countries in that same predicament as well, such as Cuba recently, and I think there are a few other countries that still have the dual currency system. So that's going to be our topic today, gentlemen. Welcome, Wonder. Good to have you back.
Thank you very much. This is a topic I very much like to be a part of, so it's nice to be here.
Perfect. You're the guy who's keep your tally should be joining you soon. So you guys will go at it today.
We probably won't talk much about that today. Today is deeply economic. So
exactly. Flomo, welcome.
Hey, welcome, Jimmy, and welcome, Gabriel, and my brother Freeman. You know, it's a pleasure to be with you guys again today. You know, I love being here because it's about our country. You know, like we're going to talk about finance, but the deeper portion of it is not just talking about it; it's talking about it with relation to Liberia. So that makes it more interesting, because people want me to ask, but why are they Liberians, and then discussing find out what's the relation it has to do with our country or the current affairs of the country. Short answer: we're discussing finance with effect to our nation. So that's why I'm happy being here always.
Perfect. Jimmy.
Yeah, Gabriel, it's always great to be here with you gentlemen, you finance luminaries. And you know, this particular topic, I bet you a lot of Liberians take for granted the use of the U.S. Currency in Liberia. There's a lot of historical, political, and economic indications of this. We notice that our neighboring countries are all using CFA, right? And then in Sierra Leone they use the Leon. So, it's great that we put this into context. What are the pros and cons, and how we got to this place? It's a great topic. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, without, I'll give you guys a backdrop. Maybe something that happened recently in 2021. So Cuba, a country that I love very much in the Caribbean, has had dual currency. So they have the Cuban peso, which is for the regular citizens. And if you're a tourist going there, they have the CUC, which is the exchange rate to the US is 1-to-1. So for every $1, you get one CUC. And that is only for the foreigners, right? And then for the regular citizen, they have the Cuban peso. But in 2021, they got rid of the CUC and just went into a single currency regime. And so if you look around, as Jimmy talked about, if you look around West Africa, I think 8 countries that are the Francophone countries all have single currency, which is the CFA. Whether you go to Togo or you go to Benin, Guinea, Ivory Coast, and the other French-speaking country, they all use the CFA. And Nigeria, even though that currency is, for lack of better words, has been devalued to garbage right now, it's still a single currency. You cannot use the US dollar in Nigeria. You have to exchange it to the Naira to use it, right? So the context here is that in our case, we have been having, I don't know how long, and I will admit that here, I don't know when we started using the dual currency, but I believe at one point, one Liberian dollar used to equate to single US dollar, right?
Yeah, that was during the day of our forefathers.
Right.
It used to be, yeah.
So I don't know when that transition happened that we decided to start using dual currency. And so this is what we want to look at today. And we can look at also the case for Eurozone, right? The European country, they all use the euro, right? Like, if you're a country in the Eurozone, you join the euro, you have to abandon your currency and use the euro. So that is what we wanted to look at today. For those of you who have maybe some historical context, when did we start using the dual currency, or what actually caused the use of dual currency? Or was that an act in the central bank law or the constitution that caused us to start using dual currency? Anyone?
Okay, so let me come in with the history.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm using an IMF paper from 2009. Okay, so I guess I won't need to call the author and all of that, but yeah, they were looking at the dual currency policy, and as a prelude, obviously, they have to go into the history. So from the independence of Liberia up to, I think, the early 1900s, we were using a combination of US dollar and Liberian dollar coins.
Okay.
So meaning the US dollar was available, but it was moving side by side with the Liberian dollar coins. So effectively what it was saying is, like, even though it may not have been a declared policy, but it was a dual currency regime because you had the US dollar notes and you have Liberian dollar coins.
Yeah.
Then somewhere beginning in the 1910s, all the way up to 1935 or 40 thereabout, Liberia was using both the US dollar, but this time they were using the pound So at that time, the British were, you know, in the deep of their colonization, and they had a West African pound that they were using.
Mm-hmm.
But when Tubman came on the scene, he switched back exclusively to the US dollar in combination with the Liberian coins.
Mm-hmm.
And so from 1944 up to the time Doe came in, we were not really having a Liberian dollar note. What we had was a Liberian currency, but in coins. And obviously, in recent history, we remember the 7 corners from Doe time. So Doe brought in the 7 corners, which were the Liberian dollar, but coins,
Mm-hmm.
and then subsequently introduced the JJs. And of course, we all know in recent time, Dr. Sawyer, the interim government, brought in the Liberty,
Mm-hmm.
and then onward to what we consider the Unity. So that's a brief history, but what it tells you is that with the introduction of the central bank, it was written in law that we are implementing a dual currency regime. Okay, so I don't know whether it was by law from the 1870s, I mean from 1847, but I know they were using the US dollar notes with a combination of Liberian dollar coins. So that, in a nutshell, that is the currency history of Liberia.
So what, quickly before I bring in Flomo, was there any like rationale in terms of the rationale behind that, like to support that use of the dual currency? Was it like that? Was it like a devaluation in the Liberian currency and they needed the US dollar to prop it up?
Yeah.
For which they introduced that, or was it like, what was the rationale behind it? Do you know?
Let me come in, Gabe, on that. Liberia began using the US dollar as its official currency in 1943.
Okay.
The decision to adopt the US dollar was influenced by, of course, the historical ties between Liberia and the United States. And also, there was stability issues at that time.
Okay, so stability, right?
Yeah, it was stability. As you know, a country's currency is really based on its ability to produce.
Yep.
So Liberian dollar was unstable at that time. We because of our production, and I think basically we're producing coffee and rubber.
Yeah.
And so to kind of stabilize the currency in the country, it was adopted. This was a arrangement that provided good bit of stability.
Mm-hmm.
And also facilitated the ties between us and the United States.
The U.S. Okay. Flomo, I think Wanda just gave a great historical, in terms of the when we started using dual currency, or the act that brought it into existence, and Jimmy just provided as well in terms of the exact years, frame, or average time we started using it. My question to you is that, given what has happened so far, and maybe given your experience with Liberia, how do you think that has benefited Liberia?
Oh, you made a dual currency?
Yes.
It's a good question. But let me just say this. I don't think on top of my head or by research as to whether Liberia had an official act that was enacted by the legislature. I don't see that. No, I just don't see that. Like I haven't seen any official act that have been documented by the national legislature of Liberia in any given year to say, we're going to have the US dollars and the Liberian dollar in general to be our legal tender note. From my perspective, from what I see in my experience in Liberia, is the US dollar and the Liberian dollar are the most usable currency in Liberia. According to the World Bank, it says that the US dollars and the Liberian dollars are the most dollarized economics in the world. The most. Can you imagine?
Okay.
Even though we have a bad economy, and people are being poor, but the World Bank is rating us as the most dollarized economy in the world because of our dual currency that we're using. But
what do you think they mean by that? Like the dollarized? Is it that the US dollars is
it means
my French, beaucoup in circulation in Liberia than any other country?
Yeah, it means
right?
it's the nation that is more dominant.
Yes, more dominant. Okay.
Most dominant when
there
using foreign currency.
Right.
Using another country's currency in your nation. Liberia is the number one nation in the world that is dominant in using another country currency, where the people, government, local people, everybody is comfortable
uses that
using
that
the
currency.
US dollar. But an official act that was established, no, I haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
I haven't seen that yet. No.
Okay. Perfect. So my next question to you guys is
Gabriel, just a minute before you go to the next question, let me chip in.
Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Part V of the Central Bank Act.
Yeah.
Subtitle Currency. Article 19. Subsection 1. You guys gotta get adjusted to.
No. Go ahead. You're speaking on lawyer term. I mean.
Okay, yeah. So
we'll catch up.
The monetary unit of Liberia shall be the Liberian dollar.
Right.
Divided into 100 cents. That's section 1.
Right.
Section 2. Currency of the United States of America shall be legal tender in Liberia.
Right.
For the discharge of public and private obligations, legal tender shall include banknotes and coins issued.
Yeah.
So I think it's clear because my colleague said he haven't seen it, so I now cited it. I called it section, the subsection, so he can also check his phone or his computer and read it.
Thank you for doing that one.
I get that. I'm talking about our national legislature went about to create an official act.
But I don't know what he's saying. The Central Bank is an act passed by the national legislature.
From the Central Bank, right?
The Central Bank Act is an act passed by the national legislature in 1999.
Yeah, I remember.
So when I cited the history, I said I didn't know whether in 1847, even though they were using the U.S. currency, but whether it was a former declaration. Then Jimmy came in that it was the former declaration was done in 1943, 44, but I think it coincided with Tubman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
But yes, I will provide that clarification because
the co-president and we had World War II.
Yeah. No, thank you for providing that clarity, Wanda. I think that was
in 1999 we wrote it into law.
Now.
Yeah. Go ahead. Wait, just give us a minute. Let's Wonderland. Right.
So in 1999 we wrote it into law.
Yeah.
That the currency of the the United States of America shall be legal tender in Liberia. That's part V, currency, Article 19, subsection 1 and subsection 2.
Thank you.
Those are the areas that declare.
My question was it the same year that the Central Bank was created?
Yes. It is the act
establishing
the Central Bank in a same act on a subsection on currency that they declare that we will have the Liberian dollar.
Yeah.
And we will have the US dollar.
Okay.
Now, just to chip in on the dollarization issue.
Yeah.
Globally, there is a threshold. If the money supply in your country, at least 30%, 30% of your money supply is in a foreign currency, then that currency is deemed dollarized.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't know of the informal sector, but in the formal sector, Liberia is like up to 80% plus concentrated. The currency is concentrated in US dollar, up to 80% in terms of value. So in the formal sector, we are almost like 80% operating with US dollar. So that is a highly dollarized regime. But of course, they have countries that use totally the US dollar. So they could be up to like 100% or whatever, just some clarity on that issue.
Yeah. No, thank you. And thank you for providing that context. And I think it was needed. Yeah. Mr. Willett, welcome. Thank you for coming back. I know you're having some technical difficulties. Thank you for being here.
Really, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just throwing fire at these people, and they just, I think we just went through our first round of question. But again, I think the next question I want to pose to you guys. So the fact that we now have, I want to go on a tangent here, but I think it will just take off.
Go ahead.
I wanted to go on off a tangent here because it's like usually the fact that Wanda just pointed out that in '99 that actually happened. I wanted to and excuse me here for thinking that way. What I started thinking now is, what was the logic, the rationale behind their methodology? Why did they feel? And I think, Jimmy, you provided some context in that in terms of what was it. It was. I think you said it was due to instability. That now, was it something they wanted to do on a temporary basis until things stabilized and then it moved back to it? Or it was just something they intentionally just wanted to keep as is because it kind of pegging the Liberian dollar against the US dollar kind of create that, stability in perpetuity, with a little bit of volatility there? Or was it something that, I just wanted to get into this guy's mind, but I think it will take us on a different rope here. But the next question I have for you guys is, what makes a strong currency or a weak currency? What are some of the things that make a strong currency? In our case, why do you think our economy was, devaluing, the currency was being devalued, that caused the central bank act to peg it against the US dollar to create a dual currency?
I want to provide a little more context, and I'll let one of these finance gurus answer that. Strength.
Right.
The first Liberian dollar was issued in 1847. At that time, it was pegged to the US dollar. Okay, imagine now. This is way back 1800s. Very little trade we were doing with anyone else, except maybe the British and whatnot. So at that time, it was on par and circulated alongside the US dollar until 1907. In 1907, Liberia adopted the British West African pound. Well, Britain was doing a lot of trading in the area, so they started pegging it to sterling, as the British pound, was pegged to sterling. So we pegged it to the British West African pound.
And what year was this?
That was in 1907.
1907. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we started we used to issue actual notes and some copper as well until 1935. At 1935, we decided to restart issuing our own notes again. We did no longer use the British pound.
Right.
In 1935. So starting in 1937, Liberia issued its own coins, which circulated again alongside the U.S. currency. So the official adopting of the U.S. dollar was done in 1943 in the midst of World War II. Okay. Now, just to add a little bit before they come in, the time we adopted the seven corners, and you guys remember the seven corners? I don't know any of y'all saw seven corners.
No. Seven corners.
It was after 1980 when there was a suitcase loads of US dollar leaving the country. That was adopted to keep some currency within the country. So they put this seven corner on the market, and that helped keep some money within the country. Now I'll let one of these gentlemen go ahead with the strength of currencies.
Yes.
Let me come in.
So, okay. So, from away, let me give Mr. Willett the chance to go since he was the last one here.
Yes, thank you, Gabriel. I want to say thanks to my colleagues for the patience, and those listening to us. I had some difficulties coming in, but at least I'm on. Now, when it comes to the strength of the currency, the strength of the national currency is influenced by both domestic and external factors. So it doesn't happen by itself. Like we say, our currency is strong, and so it is strong. Global and domestic factors are involved. When we look at national factors, we look at the demand and supply of foreign exchange. To what extent are we able to absorb what is supplied to us? For example, how do we trade our domestic currency to that of the US currency? It influences the strength of our the domestic currency. At the same time, what is the interest rate, the rate set by the central bank? Macroeconomic stability, which will look at inflation and the growth of the economy. Those are factors. And besides that, in addition to that, do we have a viable real sector? Because it is the real sector that is the base of the economy,
right,
indicating that what we have produced, how does it fare on the global market? How it fares on the global market also influences the strength or weakness of our domestic currency. If we look, for example, what we produce and export, rubber, gold, iron ore, and all of that. If you go to Index Monday, you will see that the prices are fluctuating. And in most instances, when those prices are fluctuating, they don't fare well for us. Yeah. So that leads to the balance of trade imbalances. Yeah. What is our level of external trade? Is it high, negative, positive? What is it? And that also influences how our currency is rated by people on the outside. ECOWAS has a benchmark, which is the ECOWAS accession criterion, which says 3 months of input cover. If you cannot afford 3 months of input cover, it means there is something practically wrong with your currency, indicating that your currency is not vibrant to the level where it commands the goods and services out there that you will need domestically. And that is a factor which is influenced by what we export. So a range of national and international factors will have impact on what we will refer to as the strength or weakness of our domestic currency.
Perfect.
Okay, Gabriel, let me chip in there because
yes,
what the professor had just said, I think I have to break it down.
Yep, go ahead.
So that's why you call it Dr. Ray.
He said I shouldn't call him doctor.
Yeah. Okay. But look,
yeah, go ahead.
I like to speak in very common terms. What are you selling to the world? What are you selling? Because if you're not selling something that is so valuable to the world, then there's another lot of people wanting your currency. So let me break it down. Let's say Germany, right? Before they went to the euro, they had a German mark which was very strong.
Yeah.
But if you think about what Germany is selling, think about Benz, think about BMW, think about, drugs. There's a lot that Germany is selling. So you have to buy, and when you go to buy from Germany, obviously you have to buy mark. So eventually, more people wanted to buy mark because they have to trade with Germany, carries their currency up to be strong. So in Liberia, what are we producing and what are we selling to the world that the world wants? Do you guys know of anything that we're really producing that they want?
Besides rubber?
Gold and diamond and timber.
Yeah.
Diamond, timber, log.
That is the main problem. what you are producing and selling is in its raw state.
Thank you. Yeah.
So it doesn't command your own price. It has to sell at the auction price on the global market.
Yeah.
I would suppose rubber is not finished, right? We sell it in the raw state, right?
Yeah.
And the gold, diamond, everything we sell it in the raw state, right?
Yes.
Good. So when you're going to sell something in the raw state, the market, the price on the international market is what you will price it. But if you have put energy, effort, knowledge to the point that it gets to be something as valuable as a Benz or a BMW, you get to put your own price on it. And because you put your own price on it and the world is demanding it, so your currency gets stronger. So the problem we have in Liberia is that we just don't have any product that we are selling to the world that the world wants. And that wouldn't Liberia by a lot of
yeah, I understand what you're saying of the value added. There's a lot of when the product goes through stages of production, there's value added at each stage, and it makes the product more valuable. But at some point, demand and supply will still come in, and if there's enough demand for whatever that product is, even if it's in the raw state, if where demand and supply meet is what will determine the price, right?
Yeah, that's what Jimmy is saying.
I'm agreeing with you. What you're saying is that it has a value, but the value is low compared to when you put a lot of knowledge, expertise, and other things into it. Now, when the world wants it, you put your own price on it. For example, the iPhone. Is it really worth $1,000 US?
No. If nobody was buying it, again, it's demand and supply.
The value is coming from the fact that all around the world, people want it. Yep. So I'm saying, because we're speaking in general terms, what makes a currency strong or weak? Yep. I'm saying when your economy is producing things that the world wants,
that is
very good.
Right.
Yeah,
it will strengthen your currency.
I agree.
And on the opposite side, when you are producing things that where people want, but every other person got it the same way, because for example, if you don't buy Liberian rubber, you can go to Malaysia and buy Malaysian rubber, right?
Yep.
If you don't buy Liberian cocoa, why you go to Ghana, you go to whatever place. So it's not like you're selling Swiss chocolate, right? Because Swiss chocolate maybe it has a different flavor. Everybody like it. People want Swiss chocolate. So if a country does not add value to its products, if it's not selling things to the world that is the people want, by all means, the whole world wants it, then of course the currency is going to be devalued. And on the opposite side, just think about the US. You can think about 101 things that the US has that the whole world wants. And on that basis, everybody wants the US dollar for the same reason, to buy those stuff. So in layman terms, that's what makes one currency to be well sought after and has a high value, and another currency to be not well sought after and has a low value. We can talk about the specifics of Liberia, but in general terms, that's how currency gets higher value and lower value.
In addition to what Wanda just said, I was talking to a colleague from the Ministry of Lands, Mines, and Energy the other time, and I asked him, the gold we produce, or the diamond from Liberia, it is exported somewhere and exported again. So my question to him was, is the value, is the price different? And he said it. He said it clearly. He said what we produce and export is raw. When we carry it, it is, in his word, they cut it.
Yeah.
Meaning they refine it, they carry it to another level.
Right.
Yes, they improve on its value. So on the global market, then it commands a higher value compared to how it was exported from here.
10 times higher. You all right there?
Yeah.
Professor Willa.
His dogs.
Okay.
Professor Willa is.
I wanted to bring in Flomo for a second. Flomo, what are your perspective on the question that was? You can now. I know Wanda just did a great, in terms of looking at this thing from a high level and making it into a layman term. But from your understanding, what do you think? Maybe you can add to what do you think makes a strong or weak currency in terms of, and you can put this thing to a Liberian context as well.
Yeah,
in our case, right?
That's what I was about to say. I was, talking about finance in general is very important, very good. But I'm looking at the attraction, I'm looking at the validity, and I'm looking at the relativity when it comes to dual currency or single currency in relation to our country, Liberia. Because it's one thing we all have in common. So basically, we're talking about Liberia in a broad term. So the strength of a currency, it depends on many factors. One, that in our low economic term, we say demand and supply. So that it lives, demand and supply. The reason why I put it in our context of our term is so that the little man who watch it on Facebook or on YouTube will definitely understand what we're talking about. So you understand that an increase in the demand of a particular currency create high level of validity and attraction to that currency. So let's take, for example, the reason why the US dollar is of high value in Liberia and around the world, understand that the US dollar is of high demand. It's of high demand.
Why do you think it's a high demand?
It's of high demand because it's not surplus on the market. I was going to come to that. It's not surplus. What? It's not surplus on the market, one. Two, it's of high demand because bulk of the transaction, nearly almost every nearly every transaction, every business transaction of or financial transaction done in Liberia is being done in the US dollar. Right. So as a result of that, it creates a high demand for that particular currency. All right.
Okay.
So even in other African countries, right, the euros, the US dollar, and the euros, the British pound, those currencies are of high demands in those currencies because it creates the attraction. The people are attracted to those currencies.
But what do you? I wanted you to maybe piggyback on what Wanda was saying. What makes it attractive, right?
Exactly. Why do we have high demand?
Look at it from a derivative. Look at this from a derivative standpoint, right? So you work in finance, right? So for every derivatives, there's an underlying collateral, right? So if you say there's a demand for this derivatives, right? There's a reason why there's a demand for that derivative. That's because of the underlying collateral that's supporting it. So in the case of the US, or wait, give me 1 second. In the case of the US or the British pound or the sterling, why do you think people are demanding that? Like, why do you think it's more in demand compared to the other?
Why is a high demand?
The demand, like, let me put it into a broad context with Liberia. The demand for the American dollar or the US dollar in Liberia is as a result of two factors. Locally, why? Locally, the people factor to it because that's what our country.
You're fading in and out. Could you the microphone? The microphone is fading in and out.
Yeah, our people use the US dollar to do nearly action in Liberia. Number two, is of attraction in Liberia because people who are doing businesses in Liberia, they want the US dollar because that's what is being used on the international market. Okay. So, for example,
so why is it being used on the international market?
That's the name that I want him to hit.
Let me chip in there.
Flomo, we're talking about it. You say high demand.
I want you to get to the point, Flomo.
You say high demand all around.
Let me just put it in there, right?
Just hold on. Our currency is of low value, right? Our currency is not internationally accepted.
Right, and we cover all the reason why.
Accepted.
Right.
You cannot take the Liberian dollar to go to China to purchase goods.
Right.
So as a result, the people who purchase their goods from China to sell in Liberia,
right,
they want to sell their goods for American dollar because that's what is accepted in China and other global markets.
Yeah, but
so here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Yes,
dollar is in demand all over.
Let me make a point. Let me make a point.
Policy also affect that. Policy also affect that. Because if our governing authority policy that will create our currency attractive and of value, you understand, like in Ghana, the CD is widely used, is widely acceptable, and is of demand.
Okay. Wanda,
yeah.
Go ahead. I know you touched on this, but I just want you to because we have people listening.
Think about your daily life. Think about your daily life. How many products you use that is produced in the US, and if you can't get it in the US, you just can't get it at all. Let's start with the air travel. Boeing. Boeing is the domineering producer of plane. And I mentioned your iPhone. Think about education, right? Harvard and MIT, So when you have products, whether it's physical product or you have services, and people just can't get it anywhere else. They have to get it from you, especially if they want the quality. Then they have to get your currency to buy it. That is the underlying, the thing you call underlying asset. That's it there. Yes. So it's not the currency itself, but because for example, say you want a particular service, and you can only get it from an American scientist. And obviously, you got to pay the American scientists in US dollars. So on the basis of wanting to hire an American scientist, you have to find US dollars to pay the American scientists. So it is the same, whether it's weapons, whether it's education, whether it's medical. People come from all around the world to go and do a medical procedure in the US. When you come to the US, what are you going to have? You're going to need US currency.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, most what should I say, developing countries, they are not producing stuff that is in that level of demand around the world. So as a result, people are not so much too interested in their currency because, of course, if you get Liberian dollars, what do you want to buy? You have to go there, you have to go buy pepper and what have you. But of course, there are other 100 countries producing pepper. So you could get it from anywhere else. Okay, but there are not 100 countries.
Cameroon has the best pepper, by the way.
Come again?
I said Cameroon has the best pepper.
Yeah. So when you think of currency, if you want to move the academic jargon from there, that is basically how, because look in Africa, South African currency, the rand, is one of the powerful currency we have. Why is it powerful? Oh, it's powerful because South Africa produces a lot of stuff. I was there for a year or so, and I know that, for example, the BMW 3 Series is produced in South Africa.
Yep.
And only in South Africa. And from South Africa, it's shipped to the rest of the world. So if you want to buy BMW 3 Series, you have to buy South African rand to buy it from South Africa. So that kind of interaction is what carries a currency up. And so, and if you don't have that advantage, that's what brings it. And it doesn't have to be physical product; it can be a service. Okay. So if you have a service that only you can provide, other people are not necessarily providing it, then people will want your currency to buy that service from you.
Gabriel, let me add something.
Let me say something.
Professor Willer comes in. Just a minute before Professor Willer. I like Professor Willer to chime in. But first of all, the fact that what Wisdom was saying, what Wonder is saying, that the United States has the largest economy in the world.
Right.
Because it has the largest economy, there's a lot of investor confidence. The people believe, because this is such a big, huge, humongous economy that produces so many goods. There's a lot of confidence in it. The other thing they have is a gold reserve currency. They have their gold is backing back their currency. So again, it gives investor confidence. The United States has also political stability. You don't see coups and this and all kinds of stuff going on. So again, investors have more confidence because this is a stable economy. They have excellent financial market, very liquid. Anytime you can go to the bank and get all your money. That's not the case in many countries in the world. Then go to the technological and innovation. They are leaders in technology. So all the leading technology you can get again from the United States. Then they have strong laws, property laws, that you cannot simply take advantage of anyone. That again boosts investor confidence. Then you have again their energy dominance. These guys are one of the great, whether you know, it's not the Arab countries that produce more oil than the United States. They produce more oil and natural gas than any other. So all these factors, before I let the professor come in, all these factors contribute to why the US dollar is in high demand all over the world, not just in Liberia, poor Liberia, but all over the world.
And that's Jimmy, thank you. That's exactly where I was going. In addition to what Warner said, what Jimmy said, when it comes to America's production basket, it's a huge basket we are talking about. And it has such a huge demand around the world that everybody wants to patronize American products. Warner just talked about South Africa producing a BMW, yes. But if you come to America and South Africa wants to pay all of our mission staff in America, South Africa will not bring the South African rand. And there's a simple reason to that, because they will have to use the US dollar here. But what I really wanted to add was that this issue of the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, where the US dollar was declared the global currency. And on account of that the US dollar was declared by the IMF as a global currency, it means that it should be a currency accessible to everybody around the world, and they should use the US dollar with extreme comfort. So if the US dollar has the support of the IMF, it means that all of us around the world, we should have some usage for the US dollar. And Liberia is no exception. Okay. Our economy is 84 to 90% dollarized. Imagine that. So if our economy is 84 to 90% dollarized, what it means is that almost on a daily basis, 90% of our transactions are done in US dollar. So why wouldn't we as a country demand US dollar? So we want it because it has become the medium of exchange and even superior to, let me just say it that way, and even acceptable than our own domestic currency, because they say it has value, you can store it, and it will not lose its value as compared to our currency.
Perfect. All right. So I think we still on this question here, but I'm glad we did. In a sense, I'm glad we did, because I like how you guys broke it down. I think Dr. Bled took it to the high level, and Wonder just made it simple for everybody to understand. So I'm glad we stay on that. The next thing the question I want us to look at is so for me, I don't want to partake in this. This is why I let you guys just talk. But I think I want to say it before I ask the last question. I believe, based on what you guys have just said, everything that you have said in terms of the lack of productivity, the lack of demand for anything produced in Liberia, we don't have value added to our production, even from the gold, the rubber, and if we have even diamond and timber and all those things, we don't have a value added. So in a way, this is why our currency doesn't have a value. So from basically what you guys have said, this US currency, which we're not at the end of the show, but I've already concluded already. It's being used as a prop to prop up a non, valuable currency, that production cannot support, that no economic activity supports, and you can look at the economic activities out there. So this is why I believe this is done. But my question to you guys is, how is this dual currency use hurting Liberia, or its ability to chart its own path like the rest of the other African country around in the region? How is that hurting? How is that hurting us?
So Jimmy, let me jump start on this question. So it's an interesting thing because the rational analysis will lead to the conclusion you're reaching.
Right.
That because we are not really producing anything of value added,
right,
so our currency is weak.
Right.
So the logic is, why not use a strong currency?
Right.
Okay. But that will leave you in a perpetual state of dependence. And that's not what you want.
Right.
Nobody wants to be perpetually dependent on another country that undermines what we call sovereignty.
Correct.
Okay. Well, let me tell you why a lot of countries will never adopt another country's currency.
Perfect.
And I will tell you why.
That's the case that I want to support, but I want to hear that.
What is a currency, especially the paper currency? It's probably an ordinary piece of white paper.
Yep.
They put some security marks on it and they print it in colors, and it becomes currency.
Correct.
Good. But what value are they put on it? Because an ordinary piece of white paper, even if you put coloring on it and other features, it doesn't add too much value.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Let's start with the US dollar.
The greenback.
The cost to produce $1 is 7.5 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So you are producing something at 7.5 cents, but you are declaring it to be $1. Mm-hmm. And when you go to the market, you pay $1, they give you $1 worth of goods and services. Mm-hmm. But you pay 7.5 cents to produce it.
93 cent profit.
So you are making a profit of 93 cents that goes to the government. That is not taxes. That is just money free for you as a profit because your currency is demanded. And when you print it, the cost is 7.5 cents, but you declare it to be $1. So there's a difference. There's a spread of 93.5 cents accruing to the government.
Yeah.
For example, the $20 bill costs 13.8 cents to produce. So you can manage it and know what profit accrued to the US government. And the $100 bills cost 17 cents to produce. So imagine a $100 US bill. Just think of yourself going to the supermarket and spending $100. Mm-hmm. And it costs the US government 17 cents to produce. So the difference between the 17 cents and the $100, that is profit to the US government.
Yeah.
For printing a $100 bill. So on the basis of that, no country is logically going to use another person's currency and leave that amount of money
on the table.
Right. On the table.
Right.
Yeah, but
no matter how.
It's not the cost of producing the note that gives it its value.
No.
The value is the goods that you can buy with it. That's what.
But yeah, I think he's speaking to the senior. How do you call it? Seniorage.
Seniorage.
Right. Yeah, seniorage. That's it.
I won't call it the actual name because it is a public show, and so what I'm saying, right. Jimmy, because we already discussed what causes country currency to go up or down.
Right.
But why are countries not, if the US dollar was so good, or the European the euros, why are countries not gravitating to them? Because you just mentioned, for example, Sierra Leone who have been using the pound or the euros, not so?
Yep.
Why is Sierra Leone not using it? We mentioned other countries. Yep. If the logic, because the conclusion that Gabriel drew is that it's advantageous, right?
Right.
So if it's that advantageous, why are countries not using it? It's because there is another advantage that is greater than that first advantage. So what I'm saying, I'm not saying that's all the value, but I'm saying that when trade is growing and production is increasing, people will need your currency, right, to buy. And so the government has to produce the currency. So the cost between what it costs to produce and the value you put on it, that spread is just profit, not taxes. It's just profit.
Yeah.
So as a result, that's why you see there are almost 50 some more countries in Africa, and none of them will use euro or US dollar because they can't see themselves seeing money like that and allowing another country. So when you use the US dollar, here's what you are doing. When you continue to use the US dollar, you increase the demand for the US currency, right?
Yep.
And so when there is a demand for US currency, the US government has to print currency.
Mm-hmm.
And when they print the currency, that spread is what they get as profit.
They make money off of it as well.
Yes. Yeah. And even in the days of electronic transaction, sometimes they don't print physical currency, you know. So what I want Liberian people to know is that you are, in effect, giving the US economy millions of dollars annually. Just by the fact that you continue to use their currency, you continue to create a demand for the currency. And once there is an increased demand, they put in for more printing. And as they get more printing, the person who will make the profit from that printing is the American government, not the Liberian government. You know, so we have to think about this. I mean, it's not all the story to it, but the fact is 50 countries in Africa, why don't they choose the euro or the French franc or the US dollar? They will not choose it because they are seeing what they can get by controlling. And there are also monetary policy issue because, for example, Red talks about intervening in the economy. Okay, but when you control your own currency, obviously you are able to intervene far more forcefully than if you are using your foreign currency. So those are issues that people need to consider. Why it may be logical to say, okay, we're not producing and we're not doing this, so we want to use the US dollar. But that mere advantage of being able to make that amount of profit is what a lot of countries will never go and adopt another country currency, except for Liberia.
Perfect.
Let me come in.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me come in.
Dr. Wula, just give me a minute. Let's hear from Flomo, and then I want you to take the penalty shot on this.
Thank you, Frema, and thanks to all of you. You know, the issue of how has a dual currency hurt Liberia? I will take it from two angles. Talk about how it hurt our nation and what could be done in order to prevent further harm to our economy. Now, this is what I have come to understand. The hurt of dual currency to Liberia is as a result of our poor economic structure, or what we call the bioeconomic structure. So anytime you have a strong economy, you will therefore have a strong currency. For example, the United States currency is of high value or is very strong because the United States has a strong economy. The British pound is strong because Great Britain has a strong economy. Mm-hmm. The Europe is strong because the European Union has a very strong economy. Yeah, so that's plain blank. Now, however, from my perspective, I believe that in order to prevent any further hurt to our economy, or when it comes to dual currency, we need strong policy.
Such as?
State actors, strong policy by our state actors, policy that will give our natural resources high value. We got wonderful, great, expensive natural resources in Liberia. You have diamond, you have gold, you have oil, you have timber, you have rubber, you have iron ores. If those natural resources were not of importance or significance to the world, you wouldn't have ArcelorMittal, you wouldn't have other great companies in Liberia doing business there or harvesting them. But because our state actors, they are not attaching importance to the resources to ensure that policies are implemented. For example, where if you produce rubber, you're going to dilute the rubber in Liberia where people will get jobs. You're going to produce other raw materials right in Liberia that will be exported to the international market. But everything produced that is being taken from Liberia is shipped out of the country. It's not being processed. The rubber is not processed, or the gold is not processed. The oil is not processed. The timber is not processed. The iron is not processed. It's gone. It's gone out. So we need policy that will ensure that the dual currency will not hurt our nation. State actors need to act with immediate effect in order to stop it.
So, like when you said you need policy to ensure that the dual currency will not hurt, and I think you talked about the value added and the which in a way kind of border the line of policy intervention. Are you saying that, literally we should keep the policy, the dual currency, but enact policies? We should keep the dual currency, but enact policies to make sure that it doesn't hurt the economy?
Yeah, well, you can keep dual currency. Let's say, for example, according to history, back then, during our forefathers, they in the 60s, in the 50s, they had what we call the one-to-one, right? $1 US to $1 Liberian dollar. Why was it like that? Because our currency have a lot of great attraction because those resources that were being mined or taken out of Liberia were given high value. Policy was in place, I believe, from my perspective, that's the reason why we had a one-to-one. Because investors were attracted to Liberia. They were not just taking the resources. The economy was very strong. Liberian economy was strong then. Because there will be no way Liberia had one-to-one with the Liberian dollar or the Liberian currency to the US currency when Liberia never had a strong economy. That clearly indicates that Liberia had a great economy. That's the reason why we had the one-to-one. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying now that in order for us to prevent further hurt, economists of Liberia, financial experts, or state actors need to go back on the drawing board and look at history and see, well, what did we do back then that had us having a great currency to what we have done now.
Okay.
So can we go back on the drawing board to ensure that our currency be of attraction, be of value, be stable? The Liberian currency is too much on the market, is supply on the market. Because of the supply of the currency, now it causes inflation. That's the reason why we have our currency is not of value. That's the reason why you have one currency dominating our currency, because too much supply of the currency, too much supply.
Okay.
You see, Gabriel.
Yeah.
Let's take a case of the African Cup of Nations or some Olympics, and you're watching it and you don't see the Liberian flag. The reason why you don't see the Liberian flag is because Liberia is not there. Our flag, for example, is a source of national pride. I got a friend we were at the university who said, have you ever stood somewhere for the Lone Star to play over you? And everybody cheered him. So that's the same reasoning for the currency. If you don't see your flag as a national pride, but you see the US dollar as a source of pride, then something is intrinsically wrong with us.
Say that again. Please repeat that one more time.
Let me say it. The Olympic, we see Liberia participating, we all cheer. Woo, woo, woo. But if we don't see Liberia, we are all downhearted. And that's the same reasoning for the US currency. If we continue to perpetuate the use of the US currency, what it means is that our national pride is diluted.
Yeah.
Because there is a value, intrinsic, moral, and some value attached to the Liberian flag. But this, in our case, we are using the US dollar. And as Warner gave a statistic, it tells us that US dollar is a US export, but we are paying more for the export. Take it that way. This export is actually valued 5 cents in the United States of America, but in Liberia, it is 35 US dollars. So it means US will keep exporting this to us because our appetite for the US dollar is so strong.
Yeah.
It's so strong.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah, it's so strong. So what's going to happen is the US dollar should be seen as a commodity that is hurting us. Because if we stop paying for it, we will save. Let's be realistic with ourselves.
Yeah.
If we stop paying for it, we'll save hugely. But that is the situation where we find ourselves. And it also means that monetary policy, the practice of monetary policy in Liberia is limited because we don't have control over it. And because we don't have control over it, how do we regulate its circulation in terms of, for example, a macroeconomic challenge? We have huge inflation, exchange rate with suffering. And can we use the US dollar as an instrument? We can use the US dollar as an instrument because at some point in time, we will be denied that currency. So, Gabriel, that is where I stand. It hurts us very hugely, and we should begin to think about it.
Thank you. And that's, Wonders, I think, is having technical issue. And that's the point I was making, that the conclusion that I was making, I think Wonder may have heard it, definitely was that, hold on. Where is he? He may have heard it differently, was that based on everything you guys have said, the point that I was making is that the value of our currency is literally so devalued, right? It's so worthless that in essence, in actuality, in order for it to exist as a currency to keep our sovereignty, we have to prop it, like literally prop it up with the US dollar, right? To keep it up. Even though, as you said, we don't it continued to hurt us, like you said, and I agree with you, right? But I think that is the point that you just made. If we continue to do that in perpetuity, we hurt ourselves in perpetuity. We continue to hurt our economy, right? And in a way, it kind of undermines our sovereignty, right? Like you said, I usually tell people, if anybody wants to do anything to destabilize our country, they don't have to do anything. You just go to the black market. You pull out the rest of the U.S. currency, and you will single-handedly, just like that, destabilize the country. We've had it several times where you go to the country, there's a shortage of US dollars, everything stops, right? So the conclusion that I keep making is that our currency, because of we don't have value, we don't have production value, we don't have productivity in the country. The few items that we produce, such as the cocoa, the rubber, the iron ore, and all these things, we ship it out of the country in their rawest form, right? And because of that, we don't have demand for our currency. And in order to keep that economy going, we have to prop it up, right? So that's the point that I was making here. But the next question,
Gabriel, let me just add something. I live in a community where everybody knew, because of my kids and all of that I work for the central bank. And because I work for the central bank, those who had the mutilated US dollars, they brought it to me, and took it to the bank and carried it. And they changed it. They exchanged it for new bank notes and all of that. But what was happening is that some were even bringing counterfeit. So I had to buy pen, this counterfeit pen. I had to buy it and keep it on myself. Because when you give me your US dollar at home, I write on it, and if it is counterfeit, I tell you, you can't get it back. So what it means is that because of the appetite, that huge circulation for US dollar in our economy, we also accommodate for counterfeit.
Yeah.
And this counterfeit is hurting us the most because it has no value, but it is commanding goods and services.
Yeah.
That's the point I wanted to put in.
So, Wonder, you're back.
Yeah.
Well, we thought we lost you there for a minute. So, the next question I want us to answer here before we take a break and look at comments, and then we jump into the final section of the show is that, so given everything that you guys have said, which I wholeheartedly agree with, that the need for single currency in Liberia is should have happened right after the war, right? How do you guys think we can transition? How do we how do, one how do you guys think we can transition to a single currency? And second, how do you make that case to either the central bank or the legislature of the country that this is important, that a single currency, it is good for the interest of the country? How do we, well, but first, how do we transition?
Can I make a point on that?
That
I'll offer a while, so maybe I should come in first.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was already making the point that the benefit you get from printing your currency when there's a demand for it goes into the billions of dollars.
Right.
And I was saying this is not taxes. This is just free money on the table. And if you think about it, why are other countries not using euros and US dollar if it's so beneficial? Because they understand that part of it, that if they turn over that authority to another country, that country gets to benefit by millions of dollars. The other thing I want people to know, even if we're producing gold and rubber and all of that, when you go to sell it on the international market, because it's raw state, it has to take any value that is quoted on the international exchange.
Right.
You have not added anything to it. So your gold, your diamond, your rubber is at the same way as any other person who is selling gold, diamond, and rubber, and iron, whatever. So if the international price is 50 cents per ton, you can sell your own $1 per ton, because if you sell it $1 per ton, they will just go to the next country who is selling it at the 50 cents per ton. So I want to instill in the Liberian public that you have to go beyond just saying, okay, I got this product. You must add value. And it doesn't have to be a physical product. It can be a scientific, it can be a scientific not investigation, but discovery. For example, we all use Facebook, right? Facebook is worth billions of dollars. Why is it worth billions of dollars? It's a service. It is worth billions of dollars because people like it, they want it, they demand it. And advertisers know that people are there, so they pay millions of dollars. So it doesn't have to be a physical product. It can be a service. So you don't get to have a value just because you are selling a raw material. Because if the market price, for example, Nigeria has a currency problem right now, right?
Yep.
But they have oil. But every time if the world market price for oil drops, there's going to be a dip in the Nigerian government revenue. And it's going to hurt the economy. But if they were selling something else, for example, that price will not easily drop. And I keep making the example with BMW and iPhones. There's no way iPhone price is going to drop significantly because it's not subject to international market. The scientific innovation behind it is what driving the price. And so we have to think about pushing production in Liberia, whether it's physical product, pushing our people into more scientific fields and stuff like that. We have to produce something that is valued internationally that people want and they want to buy. I don't even know whether we have a product that we are really selling that is, let's forget about the whole world, but even across West Africa that people buy. I'm not sure.
Nope, there isn't.
Okay. But even Ghana, for example, I think Ghana have been producing some beverages. I know Alomo Bitter, people buy it all around the world. It's a huge source of foreign currency, right? Alomo Bitters, right? So let our people know that for your currency to have value, you got to be selling something valuable to the whole world.
Yeah, whether it's boiled down to the economy.
because they have to buy it. And when they need to buy it, they have to buy your currency. And it is in that buying your currency, that's how your currency gets value. But I believe that we can't forever be slaves to the American government or to the US currency and then call ourselves an independent country. If Ivory Coast is developing and they're not using the US dollar, maybe we need to go to there and learn why they're doing it, that they are developing and they're not using the US dollar. If Botswana, which I think has the most value currency in Africa, they're not using US dollar and they're not using the euros. They're not even using the South African rands. They're using the pula. Maybe we need to go to there and find out what are they doing. But to say that we will forever be subject to the US dollar is to forever be subject to the US control. Yeah. We have to chart our own course. Yeah. So I feel, look, you have to take some risks in life, make your currency, support your currency, intervene strategically because we have some comparative advantages that we can do. So intervene strategically in the economy, the places that are doing well, put some money there. Let's have some goods and services that people want internationally. And as they buy these services from all, that is how they will demand our currency, and that is how the value of our currency is going to go up.
All right. Brilliant point. Brilliant point. Flomo,
yeah,
go ahead.
Well, going back to single currency is now a job or a month or two or even a year business. It has to do with great policy that will be instituted. And just to summarize as to how we can go back into single currency, this is what I realized from the research. I believe that in order to move dual currency to single currency, all transactions that are cost related should be eliminated. All transactions with cost related activities should be eliminated. Now, you will understand that in Liberia, in order to, when you're changing the US dollar to the Liberian dollar, it comes with costs, right? It's not going to be 50 Liberian dollars or 50 American dollars. So it's going to be more. So from what I realized, from my perspective, if you eliminate those costs that are associated with transaction or transacting business into one currency to another, that could drive us having one currency, because businesses and people or investors are going to be like, but if I'm going to buy stuff in US dollars, if a 50 US dollar is the same as buying it into Liberian dollar, will be the same 50. So what it need? So it's basically going to be one currency.
But let me ask you, how will you eliminate those costs? You say eliminate the costs. How will you eliminate the costs?
That's what I said. Legislating or enacting policy that will be geared towards that. No, that's one. Number two is be having a stable economy, a strong economy. Like I said earlier, a strong economy determines the value and the relativity of your currency, of your own country currency.
The point here is that we don't have that. So that is out of the equation. We don't have a strong economy.
That's why I'm just giving my view as to how we can do that.
Okay.
But
it's all geared towards, it's all starting, like, okay, in order, like if you're a policy maker, you want to have one currency. You want to eliminate the dual currency to one currency. You're not just going to go on radio or TV and say, hey, moving forward, we're not going to be using a Liberian dollar. Why would you say that? It's not going to work. You have to build your economy to that level that will give your currency the value and the attraction. Your currency that it will attract investors, it will attract doing business. You know, you have to be able to produce, or like Freeman said, be able to produce goods and services that will be of value, attraction to the rest of the world.
Okay.
That's the one way.
I wanted to add.
Go ahead.
They are intertwined.
Yes, right.
So they are not a separate issue, because The central bank is supposed to intervene strategically in the economy. But your central bank is weak. And your central bank is weak because they are operating with a dual currency policy, of which 85 to 90% is in US dollar. In a currency that they don't have control over. So I just read to you the act at the start of the show. So that's the source of the problem. So the first step in solving the problem is to remove that because it's a one sentence they are there that the currency of the United States government will be legal tender in Liberia. So we need to remove it. And like I mentioned, I am convinced that people do come from Guinea, Ivory Coast, and Sierra Leone to look for US dollar in Liberia. So the demand for US dollar in Liberia is artificially high.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be the demand for Liberian dollar in Liberia because, for example, okay, you're a finance man.
Yeah.
A currency is supposed to fluctuate.
It's supposed to. Yeah.
It's supposed to go up, come down. Go up, come down, stabilize.
Yeah.
What you have observed with the Liberian dollar is it goes up and never comes down.
Yeah.
That is an abnormal pattern for a currency. And it is abnormal because there is an artificial demand. And that artificial demand is not only from Liberians, it's from people from all around the world, including our neighboring countries, who come to Liberia to source US dollar. Unofficially, they just enter Liberia, they go in the market, they get, the currency exchange. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I was even told that even some of the foreign companies in the countries, they just hoard the cash and capital flight, we call it.
Yes.
Right.
So the only way to know the real Liberian demand is to scrap the dual currency. Then we'll know the demand because now, if you want US dollar, you have to come to the bank.
Yeah.
And so now we know the real Liberian demand, but the dual currency policy does not enable us to know what is the Liberian demand for US dollar. So they are intertwined. So the central bank will not be able to go into strategic sectors. Let's say, for example, we want to promote IT services because it's fast. We can train people in 6 months, 1 year, and they can become IT professionals and they can start selling their services abroad. And that can bring foreign exchange to Liberia. So let's say we want to do that. Now the central bank wants to train some IT guys very quickly and this and that. But if the central bank is not financially or liquid or solvent or so, the ability to intervene quickly is going to be difficult. And you can expand that to other sectors like agriculture and other sectors. So they are intertwined. So there is not going to be a time where your economy will improve fast. Then you will go to Liberian dollar and stuff like that. So if you're going to do this thing, the first step is to scrap the dual currency policy. Then central bank gets stronger. Then now you can say central bank, no, you know what? We want you to put money in the IT sector. Or we want you to put money, in research and development, maybe medical research. Or we want you to put money in agriculture, stuff like that. Then the central bank is empowered. But you have a central bank that is not empowered. You have a country, the only source of revenue is tax. So because there should be revenue coming from the monetary angle.
Yeah.
But you have abandoned that one. So you are restricted now to the fiscal side, And so what's the point? If there is revenue to be had from monetary policy, get the revenue from monetary policy. Why leave the revenue from monetary policy and restrict yourself only to the taxes, which is just fiscal? Yeah. So that's the point I'm making. So they are intertwined. So it's not like we will have a good economy, then we'll switch to single currency regime. No. If you want a single currency regime, if you want a good economy, you got to first start with a single currency regime. Then the single currency regime will enable your institutions to be able to intervene strategically in the economy or intervene in strategic sectors.
Yeah.
That is not going to help you to earn foreign currency, which will build up your local currency.
Yeah. That's all.
Gabriel, if we want to adopt a single currency regime, one of the first things we have to do is let our people know that the US dollar is not in our utmost, our welfare, it does not maximize our utmost welfare.
Yeah.
And that, for me, that's what we are doing right now. Everybody is listening. Government officials are listening. Let them know that our adoption of the US dollar, which is also in the Central Bank Act, is not as helpful as we thought it would be. Earlier, I said the US dollar is an export of the US government. So each time you export, some degree of inflation from that economy, you also export it. So it means that we import some inflation. If, for example, US inflation is 2.7, that 2.7 as a result of importing US dollar into our economy, we also take some share of it. So we should tell people that it is not helping us. And because it is not helping us, one of the ways we can do it is to see if we can shift to a single currency. Now, we know countries that have hastily de-dollarized and inflation was shooting out. Many countries around the world, they thought de-dollarization was a panacea to their own economic woes, but that is not the case. So for us, de-dollarization, using a single currency, our currency, is the best we can do, but it must be done over a period of time. Because if we hastily do it, we may not get the result we desire. Let the Liberian people know that we may not get the result we so desire. But one thing we can do is, since everybody is listening right now, ordinary Liberians can also petition their legislators in our community. We can petition the guy representing us, the people representing us, say this thing is hurting us. Can you move a bill? Can you carry a bill to your colleagues to see that we can initiate a discussion on it? Because at the end of the day, we are a heavily dollarized country because our legislators approve of it.
So can I ask Thomas a question?
Go ahead, please.
So when you speak of hastily do it, and you say we should do it in phases, what can you pinpoint a time frame you're talking about?
No, okay, let me take it for this, I wonder. What happened is that at the central bank gave a roadmap for 4 years. So everything we do, it was 2012. Now it is 2024. So even if we go to that roadmap, we have to update it because times have changed. So for me, yes, we don't have to hastily de-dollarize. It must be a process. If I were to give a time frame, I would be very sincere with you. I think we should take it for a period of 10 years.
Wow.
We should take it for a period of 10 years because 90% of what we are used to is what we are saying that we will not do. 90% of what we're doing is what we're saying we will not do. So it's going to take time, and we must factor everybody into it. That child in the village that using candle, if we de-dollarize, what does it mean for that child? Their parents have to buy kerosene. What does it mean for them? So de-dollarization should take into consideration everything we envisage, so that at the end of the day, when we de-dollarize, we don't regret it. I remember somebody was saying some time ago, when the US dollar to Liberian dollar exchange rate was 72, that person said one day, it was Sam Jackson. Sam Jackson said, if we are not careful, one day we'll be praying to come back to 72. And today we are praying to come back to go back to 72. So nothing must be done hastily. Because they say when the doctor is in the theater, when he makes mistake, it is only one person he kills and a family is hurt. But we are talking about that which will affect at least 5.5 million persons.
I ask that question because I want to raise a historical point.
Please do.
In 1993, and I have that in an article that I wrote. In 1993 in Virginia, Liberia, they had a conference. And in that conference, they were discussing the same dual currency policy. And they came to the same conclusion you reached to. That was the conclusion they reached, that we can de-dollarize, we can go to single currency, but we can't do it hastily. We have to do it slowly. That conference was 1993, Virginia, in Liberia. And I think maybe Hotel Africa, whatever, they had a conference there. So how many years has it been from 1993 to now that the conclusion is reached, and you're reaching the same conclusion? How many years has it been?
Yeah.
Because that was when Christopher Corner, if you can remember, Christopher Corner was deputy governor, and that time they used to call it National Bank of Liberia. So they reached the conclusion that we can't rush with this dual currency thing. We gotta take it slowly. From 1993, 2003 to 2023, we're talking about the 20 years, right? Or the 30, I don't know, 30, right? So 30 years has passed from that 1993 conference. So when are we going to make a transition?
But one more, here is the case. If we say don't hastily de-dollarize, what it means is that we should have some instruments in place that will lead us gradually. We have central bank, the T-bill, the bonds, we have other instruments. Over time, we keep using Liberian dollars.
The question is when, because I said there was this conference in 1993 and it came to the same conclusion that we can't hastily do it. So between from 1993 to now, that's 30 years. We still not ready. So when will we do it if we have not done it in 30 years?
So, Mr. Freeman, let me buffer what the doc is saying. It has to be gradual. And your question is when? Well, if you do not begin to put those things in place to transition, it will be never. One of the things you have to do, you have to start stabilizing the economy. Okay, there are all kinds of little inflation and fiscal deficits we have. You have to address those first. You have to build reserves. In other words, if you're going to transition from a dual currency, you're going to have enough foreign currency reserves in your bank to be able to make a smooth transition.
So are you telling me from 1993 to now we have not done that?
The people have to do it. The people who are in charge, they may not be doing.
So are you suggesting that from that time we had a conference, we have not done it?
We have had wars since that time, haven't we?
No, not to my knowledge. We have had a situation where we have had stability from 2005. I don't believe we had war from 2005.
You said 1993. From that time,
but you said wars, we had war since that time. So I'm breaking it up. So there were periods when we had war, and there were periods when we didn't have war.
Yeah, but let me tell you one thing, Jimmy and Freeman. Simple answer. Also, transition to single currency, I personally find it to be very difficult. I don't see it that it was gonna happen this generation or next generation to come. One reason because the policy makers we look up to policy or to institute policy, those people themselves simple thing, they love the US dollar. People never see that money. They like it in their pocket, they put like it in their wallet. Liberians in general, they love that foreign currency called US dollar. They love it. So if you bring it out now to say, well, you want to do a campaign for that to go to single currency, people ain't gonna like it for that. So I personally don't believe
I don't think I agree in a sense. I agree with you, but I don't think they should be thinking about what I like and what I don't like. You know, if I were in a legislature, it's not about what I like and what I don't like. It's about what is beneficial to the country, and not just you as a lawmaker in the country, but that of the entirety of the country and its future. So it's just because of that, we should not say, oh, that's a risk we should not take and to bring it up. I think we need people that are bold, intentional, and understand these things to be able to bring this kind of bill to the Senate.
Here's a question I have for Jimmy. Here's a question I have for Jimmy.
I think 1 second.
Here's a question I have for Jimmy.
1 second, Freeman.
What?
In order to begin instituting the issue of single currency, education also will play a vital role, meaning that there should be campaign to educate the common citizen the significance of going towards single currency, the importance it's going to create for our nation, for our economy. Education plays a very important role. The same way we conduct civic education during campaign time, it will be a great civic education for our common people, for the population, for them to understand the significance of single currency. that would be a great thing too. You know, it's not about individual, it's about sub. Because when you bring on the Senate floor or on the representative in the House, without conducting a comprehensive civic education in the community, in the various counties, the people wouldn't embrace it.
Yeah.
Conduct good civic education.
Right.
People
So,
begin to get the
can I come in now?
Yeah, go ahead, Wanda.
Jimmy, here's a question I have for you. And it could be anybody. Do we know the largest economy in Africa?
It's Nigeria.
Nigeria and South Africa are among the largest, right?
Yep, the top two.
Do we also know the smallest economies?
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe
Seychelles.
Seychelles. Yeah.
Seychelles.
Yeah.
Other smaller countries.
Seychelles is a smaller country, but I don't know from an economy standpoint, productivity standpoint.
Yeah, Seychelles. I don't know, but I think Gambia.
Yeah.
It could be. But from the smallest to the largest, is there a reason why nobody wants to adopt a foreign currency?
That's the point we're
What do you
trying
mean?
to find out here. Right.
Oh no, but
because if you're trying to say that the economy has to be great, then the largest economy will adopt it because the economy is more integrated into the global economy. Or you could say the way we say in Liberia, we're not strong enough. Then the smallest economy will also adopt it because they could say we're too small, we're not powerful, so let's adopt. But from the smallest to the largest, nobody wants to adopt a foreign currency. Is there a reason?
Yeah, I like your question. It's a very intelligent question. We have historical back ties. There are several things that went into the adoption of the U.S. currency. First of all, the U.S. has to give you permission to do it. Do you know that?
You don't need permission.
To pass a law in Liberia, we need permission from the U.S.
It's the U.S. The money doesn't belong to you.
No, to pass a law that we don't want to use the dual currency, do we need the permission of the U.S.?
Before we could use it as a legal tender in Liberia, we had to get permission to use it, first of all. All right. Now, there was a lot of background. The economy was unstable during 1943. We pegged it to the sterling. The sterling started falling down. And they looked at it a long time. They were smart. They said, you know what? This sterling here not correct. Let's use the US dollar. The whole question that all of you guys been asking, how do we switch back over? We have to first build the economy. We have to produce what we eat. That would be a good, if we start producing at least 60 to 70% of what the food we consume, we'd have a stable economy. If we started developing our industries, not just the extract, right now we depending on the extractive industries, raw products, just like you were thinking. We haven't gone through, hardly any of our industries go through several value-added production. We came down from in 1980, we had several factories in Liberia. I don't know if you guys were. We had rubber factory, we had plastic factory, we had mattress factory. We had several industries that were growing. So in order to change now to a single currency or use our own currency, we have to rebuild those industries. We have to get production back up to a level that we will not be negatively affected by inflation. What happened in Mugabe's Zimbabwe? They at one point they just started producing money.
Yeah, but
and it ended up devaluating the currency to nothing till you couldn't buy anything with their currency. So changing back to the currency, we have to remember now our currency has to have value, and the only way we have value if we have enough production within the country.
I agree with you, Jimmy, but the thing is, we're not just going to start printing. We're printing money. In that case, it would be the equivalent of the money supply that is, or maybe if you do it the exchange rate and you adjust for the discount, it will be the equivalent of what's already the money supply on the market. It won't be anything in excess of that, right? And here's the case. I think I said this at the beginning of the show. Cuba. I was in Cuba 2018, right? At the time, they were using two currencies. One is the pesos for the regular citizens, right? And then there's they call it the cook, right? Which the cook has is pretty much because they don't want you to use the US dollar, but it has the same exchange rate, one for one US dollar to one cook. So you have the pesos and you have the cook, right? 2021, which is 18, 19, 20, 21, 3 years later, they have changed to single currency. Single currency. Now in Cuba, if you want to, if you weren't born in the 60s or 50s, you want to see what that looks like. If you go to Cuba, it will take you back. It's like you're traveling back in time of what the 60s look like. Because everything there is, it seems as if you just travel back in time. There's heavy sanction on them, but Obama lifted that. But I think when Trump came in, he put it right back on. It's still on right now. They export cigars. They make cigar. They export it. When I was in Cuba, I spent 9 days there on a solo trip. Common bread that you and I can just get up and go to the supermarket. To get bread, Jimmy, in the morning, you have to get up in the morning, maybe 6 o'clock. You get up, matter of fact, you get to the store. There's already a line there for bread. Ration, eggs, milk, beans, chicken. You get at the end of at the beginning of the month, the government gives it to you. By 2 weeks in, those things already runs out. Doctors, PhD holders, they drive they make $50 US a month. So most of those teachers you see, they will leave those teaching jobs and go drive. Why do I say this? What I say this because I'm trying to get to the point that Cuba economy is no stronger than ours. They're sanctioned heavily. They don't have a lot of productivity in there. Yes, the healthcare is free or the education is free to whatever level you want to get to. But just within a period of three years, they were able to transition to single currency, right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that if they were able to do it, and here's the thing that I think and again, I put this onus back on the lawmaker. This everything that we want to do, there are other people who have done it right in our footstep, right across. There's Ivory Coast, there's Ghana, there's Nigeria. We can learn from those people. We have diplomatic relationship with those people. We can learn from them. We can send people there and say, hey, how did you guys go on to the dual currency? What are the advantages to study it to that level? But here we are, we're not doing anything, right? And we think that I'm a big opponent to this dual currency for all the reasons that we've stated here and some, but I think instead of we saying that we have to wait for the economy to be productive in terms of to whatever level we want it to be, we're going to be in this dual currency in perpetuity. And it's like I keep telling people, it undermines our sovereignty. Like our economy is so weak that if you want to destabilize Liberia, you can just go, like I think Wanda said, just go in Liberia and just clear out the US dollar from there. You will cause trouble. This is why we need to get away from that.
Let me correct a few things from Jimmy.
I don't want to talk about the Cuba business. Liberia economy is in 2022 was estimated to about 4 billion.
Right.
Cuba economy in 2020 was 107 billion. We can't compare our economy to Cuba.
We can't. But from the productivity in terms of what they do internally, they're not. That's because of the size, right? Because of the size. But if you look at the population of Cuba, right? I agree with you from a valuation standpoint in terms of economic. They're bigger than us, right? But I'm talking about the level of productivity, right? I'm sure if all those sanctions that is on Cuba were lifted, like we don't have. They would be probably twice as that. It would be in probably 200 billion or so, or 300 billion, right? That's what I'm saying is that the level of productivity I can say we probably have the same productivity, the level of productivity level. We can't say these people are smarter than us. We can't say Ivory Coast is smarter than us. We can't say Nigerians are smarter than us. We can, like, what I'm saying is, if you have a problem, look for somebody who already solved that problem. We have those people right on our doorstep. Ivory Coast, Ghana. We have working relationship with those people. We can go there and study that.
Okay, I just wanted to provide some clarification because Jimmy made some comment that we've got authorization from the US to use the US dollars. And in order to write off the policy, we need a permission. I differ with that. And I just mean I have a document here from the Bank of International Settlement.
We don't need permission to write it off. We need permission to use it.
Yes, that is not also correct. That is not also correct. A country, because let me tell you the reason why the US has been reluctant to sign agreement with people, because they have to share the senior rush revenues. And the US decided they would not share it with anybody. So as a result, the US does not want to enter into any agreement with anybody over the use of US dollar, because why? The senior rush revenue, which runs into billions, the US does not want to give you your share of it.
They ain't gonna do it.
For example, we've been using US dollar from time in perpetuity. How much have the US given us to say, okay, this is your share of the money we are making from having to print currency because you are using our currency? They have not given us any. And other countries have raised the issue that, look, we adopt your currency, we're using your currency, and you're getting the profit. Share some of the money with us. The US does not want to do it. And for good reason. If you want, go and find your own currency. You're not compelled to use my currency. So if you use my currency of your own volition, I'm not obliged to pay you. So we don't need the US permission to adopt their currency. We also don't need the permission to get off their currency. And like I said, the reason why I mentioned the smallest economy and I mentioned the largest economy, because that's the two arguments. The other, you say my economy is so big and so large and so complex, I need US dollars or I need euros, or my economy is so small and so, I don't know how to describe it, and not powerful, I need it. But from the smaller to the largest, there is just no country that I know in Africa, maybe except for Zimbabwe, that have problem. There is just no country that I know that has adopted a dual currency policy or have adopted a foreign currency policy. So the best from these African countries, why don't we go and ask them?
That's what yeah, exactly.
Why don't we ask them? Why always assume that? But I think it's something in the Liberian psyche that we just can't do without America. That's why you see when people get elected, the first thing they do, they fly to Washington. Because they don't believe that the growth of the Liberian economy, the ideas that will grow the Liberian economy can come from Monrovia. They believe that what will make the Liberian economy grow is in Washington. That's why every president that is elected flies to Washington. And it is an inferiority complex that we have to divest ourselves of, because we can engender our own local economic policy. And what economic policy did Rwanda use after the war? Rwanda. We also had the photos, the videos. Mm-hmm. Look at Rwanda today. Ask what economic policy, what currency are they using in Rwanda? Was Rwanda any better than us? So we have to think creative and everything. And I keep saying that the demand for the US dollar in Liberia is artificial, because we are not able to measure it, because people come in with no notice to all and do what they want to do and get out with no notice to all. So there's no way for us to know exactly how much US dollar is filtering in and out. So in order to have a control over the situation, we have to factor that out. So now if you come to Liberia, because it's not a legal tender, if you want it, you have to come to us for it. Mm-hmm. And when you come to us for it, then we know what our real demand is for US dollar. But as it stands, we don't know. And you can't improve your economy when the fundamental thing that you're supposed to use to improve your economy, you don't know about it. You don't know how it affects you. So you know, we just, I think it's a psychological thing that we have used it for so long. So we're uncomfortable, to move into another direction. But always the fundamental question to ask, from the smallest economy to the largest economy, why don't anybody see advantage in adopting a dual currency policy?
One of the things about us is that we are afraid to be uncomfortable. That's the thing. We're very much afraid to be uncomfortable. And we are so comfortable with the US dollar, so we want to remain in that state. But here is the situation. When you asked earlier, what time frame do we put on this thing? And I said 10 years. You even give the example of since 1993, when Chris Coyne was at the National Bank. What is going to happen to us is there has to be some fundamentals, some things in place before we get to de-dollarization. Around 2013, I was doing some work and there was this emphasis on oil palm. So I asked somebody, I said, but with everybody talking about oil palm, why? They said, because the president has interest in oil palm. You see it? Now, it means policy is being driven from the level of the presidency. If policy is being driven from the level of the presidency and all of us follows, then it means that those who talk to the president every time, those who see him every day, they should be picked by this time. They should begin to open door for discussion on de-dollarizing. For example, I said 10 years, because first of all, we have to diversify this economy. We just have to do so, because if we don't do so, we will get stranded along the way. To avoid all of that, let's give a time frame for diversification. We introduce oil palm. What the next thing we're going to introduce? Until that time, we must ensure that we don't cause any imbalance in the economy. So let's continue to diversify. And after we diversify, we can say, okay, let's look at value addition at every stage of the production process, which we also look at. And when we meet all of those conditions, even you and I we can carry a communication to Darrell DeLong, any other senator or representative, and say, we send you this letter, we want to de-dollarize. We don't have to wait for the entire community of Liberians.
So, just I think you're not checking in with my measure of corruption today.
My man, but the reason why I don't want to measure corruption.
Let's go to these comments and then we'll wrap up. I think we're way over time. Yeah. So this was from, I think some of these comments are old, but I just want to flow through them. This is Emmanuel Jassy say it was a terrible economic financial management error. I think he starts speaking to the idea to go to use dual currency by the Doe administration in the 1980s to switch to Liberian coin and JJ notes without any macroeconomic policy to sustain balance payment account. This was Emmanuel Jassy. And Emmanuel again, he said how the USD was still the major foreign exchange currency. And then we have George Solo. He said all exchange rate must be in the bank. What does he mean by that? I don't understand.
I think it means all US dollars should be in the bank. And if you want it, you carry your Liberian dollars and do the conversion.
In essence, he's suggesting that we switch to single currency.
Yes, that's
what he's saying. In effect, that's what he's saying.
And this is the other name, Breakable Powell. It says so other countries that use their own currency are they not buying goods from foreign currency?
It's a psychological thing. Yeah. It's a thing in the Liberian psyche that we can't live without America.
And this is DJ Dew. Man, hey, this is from YouTube. He said, nice topic and issues to talk about. Nice topic and issues to talk about, guys. And same guy, he said, great advice, but in reality, you don't have politicians that really care about the country and the people.
And that is true.
Yeah. So I think that is the end of the comments. But before we wrap up, sorry, I think you guys were talking before I jumped in. Did you guys have any point to make before we wrap up the show? I think you're saying well, is not responding to your questions.
No, I was asking him whether you were checking of corruption.
No, I didn't check. I didn't start from the beginning. So.
He's being a typical politician, dodging your point of corruption.
Because it's not relevant to the topic under discussion.
Typical politician. All right. Sorry, Jimmy, you just came back. Did you have any point?
Well, I will just give my conclusion. Okay. I think the gentlemen, as you gentlemen we have here, they're bringing a lot of suggestions, which in fact we understand having your own currency is better. But it requires a process, as the professor outlined. It requires a process, and our current administrations have been struggling just to survive, just to pay salaries. We do not see a lot of innovation. We haven't seen innovation since the 70s. So now, it will require new minds, new concepts, but most of all, it's going to require work. Okay, all those countries that reached the level they are, they put in a lot of work to it. So that has to factor in when we're talking about making these changes. We have to get the Liberian people to buy in these concepts, so that they will manage their expectations, as is popular called now, but more than that, so that they know that they have a sacrifice and they have a huge contribution to make to change the trajectory we are in today. And we need to hear that message from our leadership, so that people can get on board and we embark on a new Liberia. This is the Third Republic, and we're still struggling with paying salaries. So we got to get the show on the road.
So last question to you: are you for dual currency or single currency?
Oh, I definitely for single. I want to tell you, back in the 70s, I'm sorry to go off a tangent here. The TOPA tried to join the CFA group, the Francophone group that using the CFA. But do you know that those economies pay the French to keep their own money?
Yes, they do.
That would be a whole topic for itself. So in as much as we want stability and we want autonomy, we want to be able to make monetary policies that will benefit us, but there are pros and cons to the move. And so we need to make sure we make all the necessary preparations that we will transition without a problem. You know, if I always say that it was so simple, why people haven't done it before. I always say that, you know, is it like Professor say, are we just so comfortable, or is it much more complicated than we are talking about right here today? So that's where I leave it right there.
Which one are you guys, Flomo or Wonder? Flomo?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Once again, let me say thanks to all of you for coming to brainstorm and informing the Liberian people educatively as to the issue of finance, most specifically when it comes to dual currency. Gabriel asked a question as to the for or against, right? Gabriel?
Yes.
I would say I am for both based on the merits and the demerits. In order for one to just respond and say, oh, I'm for dual currency or I'm against dual currency, we should first of all look at the benefits, what we call the pro and the cons, or we talk about it. You should look at the advantages and the disadvantages before you come about to see whether you are for or against. You know, being for dual currency I tell anyone that dual currency kind of lessen the pressure on foreign reserve, most especially during an economic shake, where it results in what we call the capital flux in finance or in economics. Now, however, my hope will be that the dual currency system alleviate the inflationary pressure on our economy. So before I can say I am for dual currency, I want to make sure my hope would be that it will lessen the pressure on inflation. It should be able to decrease inflation. Then I am for. But if it cannot, then I'm not for it.
But you say you're for dual currency, right?
Yeah, I am for it.
Okay.
But it depends on the system.
But you can't say you're for something and you say it depends. Like, so in finance, you get paid for ideas. If you're supporting a point, support it to the T. You can't be on the middle. That's you get paid for your opinion.
Okay, let me say it this way.
Supporting a point, just
at this
give the reason why you support it, right?
At this point, I am for it because our economy uses. That's why it's being used for day-to-day transaction. Okay, but if we can build our economy at a certain point that will create value for our currency, then I would drive toward a single currency.
Thank you, Gabriel. Let me just come in because I'm running out.
Yeah.
I am for de-dollarization. We should go back to a single currency. We are able to do it. Nobody should scare us. 5.5 million persons. Nobody should scare us. And that is in our best interest to de-dollarize. But it should be done over time. We shouldn't do it hastily. There was a statement I made the other day about the central bank. And what I said was that on the credit for the CBA, I just want to make a correction before I leave. Yes, according to Section 46, CBL can credit to the government. Then 46.4 says the CBL can credit to the government, but in Liberian dollars. That's another thing. Even though we're talking about 83 million, but the CBL access in Liberian dollars. So, gentlemen, I want to say thank you. I will be available next Saturday, and I'm out for it. Thank you so much. Bye to all our listeners. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Professor.
Wanda.
Okay, good. So, guys, we're wrapping up. I heard your points. I guess it's summary, so I might reiterate some of my points.
Yes.
From the smallest economy in Africa, maybe Gambia, Seychelles, to the largest economy in Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt. Why do none of the countries see value in using a foreign currency? Talk about the fastest growing economies: Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Kenya, Morocco, Tanzania. None of them see any value in using a foreign currency. Is there something that they know that we don't know? I'm not saying you wake up one day and say, we have a new currency. But put a roadmap on the table. Submit a proposal. What we will do in year 1, year 2, when we get to year 3 or 4, we should transition fully. Let's have a roadmap.
Yeah.
But because I said to you in 1993, they had a conference in which Christopher Cornet was presiding over, and they said, we are not ready yet. We should wait here. We should develop our economy. We should do this. We should do that. And 30 years later, we are still to the point where we are not ready yet. We should do this. We should do that. 30 years later, we might not even be around, or if someone will be around, we might be too old. People will still be saying, oh, we are not ready yet. We should do this. We should do that. I think it's just psychological. The Liberian man just believe that he can live without America. And if you decide that you can live with high America, good luck to you. But there are other countries that are living with high America and doing the best they can to build a country. So put a roadmap together.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I want people to know, because I think I gave a lot of reason why it's important to have your own currency, because there are billions of dollars we talk about. And why is the US government not sharing that money with us? Have we asked them, we've been using your currency time in, time out. Why don't you give us share of the senior rights revenue that you get? They will not do it because they are seeking the American interests.
Thank you.
Yep. But we in Liberia, we're supposed to seek our own interests, but we are seeking the American interests. So the Americans seeking the American interests and the Liberians seeking the American interests. You know, I don't know, but that's my reasoning. The other thing I want you to know, almost every currency fluctuates. Someday the value go up, someday the value comes down. If you see a currency map, you will see it going up and down, up and down. Observe the Liberian currency map in terms of the value is only going down. We always having currency depreciation. Yeah. We don't have currency appreciation, and that is abnormal. Yeah. Because even you as a human being, something good, something bad, right? Yep. Yeah, someday you feel good, and someday you don't feel so good. So our currency someday is supposed to appreciate, and someday is supposed to depreciate. But from the time I can remember tracking this issue of dual currency policy, the only place the Liberian dollar goes is down. Down, 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 down. It never appreciates. That is abnormal because currency is supposed to fluctuate. So I'm saying to the Liberian people, we must pursue the interests of Liberia. We cannot be pursuing American interests. When we elect a president, the first thing they fly to Washington to look for economic policy. No, the economic policy that will develop Liberia has to be developed in Monrovia.
Right in Monrovia, yeah.
Not from Washington.
Yeah.
When we want to trade, we want to know how America will feed. No. We should define our own interests and pursue it. So the Liberian dollar, the fact that it never appreciates, I feel that it's inflated because the country is so open and so porous, so people from all around the world, including our neighboring countries, they come to get the US dollar in Liberia. And so we have an artificial demand for US dollar for US dollar that is affecting and depreciating the Liberian dollar. And unless we cut it off, then we'll know the actual Liberian demand, then we'll know how to cater for it. So if we need time, we'll put it in paper, put a roadmap, put a starting date, and put a finishing date. Mm-hmm. That's how we do leadership. But we can't say, oh, we're not ready now. We know when the real story is that some people got children in America, they need to pay school fees. Some people got mortgages in the US, they need to pay mortgage. So those are all the things that are factoring in to the decision made in Monrovia. But by right, our 43,000 square miles, that's what we need to consider in order to make our decision.
Absolutely.
So I want to let Liberia know that all these countries in Africa, whether Rwanda, the places where we go and we feel so nice, we take pictures and we post it on Facebook, they don't use US dollar there. Mm. No. You go to Morocco, Casablanca, the place is beautiful, you take pictures, you put it on Facebook, they don't use US dollar there. You go to Rwanda, you see the place is so clean, they don't use US dollar there. Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Nigeria, no. So what is the fear? So the only thing to fear is fear. But once you start fearing fear, then there's nothing to fear. Yep. So we take a bold step, put a plan to paper, put a starting date, and put a finishing date. Then you start working the plan. But if you leave it open, we're not ready yet, we're not ready yet. From 1993, we're not ready. 30 years later, we're not ready. Another 30 years later, if there's no plan, we'll not be ready. So let's just start on that note.
Yeah. No, thank you. And again, I think I agree with those who are for the single currency. I think you guys have given a plethora of reasons, and for that, I mean, even myself was in Ghana. I traveled the West African country. I've stopped in Ghana. I went to Togo, Benin, and then in Nigeria, all across that whole West African coast. All of those countries have single currency. And if we have any lack of ideas as to how to implement it, I think you guys have said it. There are, cases, model cases right in front of us, like the Ghana and the Nigeria that we have diplomatic relationship we can study. So I agree with you guys that the need for a second currency should happen now, and we could, like you said, Wanda, we should put a roadmap on it. The only thing that I think sometimes is a hair scratcher is the political will, or the like you guys brilliantly narrated the idea in terms of the pros and the cons, right? And I always like to put the onus on the lawmaker, like you guys call them, who will have the temerity, the gall, the boldness to say this is not just to say this is important, but to understand the reason why it's important to the economic interests of the country and put a bill forward and petition and be able to articulate that. You have your policy advisors give you talking points to be able to articulate that on the floor, to be able to convince the body to be able to pass that law and make Liberia a single currency and let us chart our own path. That's the point that the hair scratcher that I usually get taken aback, right? The understanding is there. Even if they want to reach out to people like yourself, Wanda or Flomo or any of Jimmy, you guys will be able to give them great ideas of why it's important. But the question becomes, who is going to do that? Who's going to take that bold step? For me, I think that's usually the nail biter that sometimes I question the political will of why things are not getting done in Liberia. But overall, great show, great ideas, and I think I learned a lot from you guys here today. And for all of you in the social media verse, thank you for watching us. And we'll be back here.
Before you close up, there's something called the parallel market.
Yeah.
The black market.
Right.
We didn't introduce that concept yet. I see Anthony Gay is talking much about it. A lot of these countries who claim they use their own currency, the black market is very prevalent in these economies. Okay, so is it realistic? I can go to US dollars in Ivory Coast tomorrow and spend it without going to the bank. I could go to Nigeria. I could go to Kenya. I could go to Sierra Leone. So the way we're talking about, I'm all for the single currency, but we need a real
Jimmy started arguing. Oh,
let him land. Go ahead.
We need to study the situation. That's all I'm saying.
No, and let me give, and I don't know, but let me give. So I agree with you, and that's a great point. So as I said, I was in Nigeria, I was in Ghana, Togo, and Benin. The same case you just talked about in Nigeria. You go in front of Access Bank. It's like an own flea market, but all of those people are black, and the bank doesn't even get rid of them. They're just there changing money right in front of Access Bank, right? So the bank opens up in the money, they give them the money, they change it. It's a whole subset of economy by itself. However, you come on the other side of West Africa, in Ghana, there are exchange bureaus you can go to. You will not see, well, I take that back. There's a lot of exchange bureaus until you go to like the circle, the big market, like the circle, the Jerry Rowland circle, right? Then you will see people out there like these guys. I think they're mostly Muslim guys dressing these big gown. They just sit there calling you if you have US dollars to exchange it, right? So I agree with you. That aspect has to be addressed. But nevertheless, I don't think it takes away from the benefit of the single currency. Yeah.
Well, that's an exception to the rule. I could also tell you of a case, for example, in South Africa. I was there.
Right.
And I tried to buy air ticket from a travel agency.
Right.
Travel agency, and they refused my money, the US dollar. And they wouldn't touch it. So I had to go to the bank and get a change to get rents and then go and buy my air ticket. So while it is true that there may be country, and that may be like the exception to the rule, but obviously when the country declares a currency to be legal, obviously it means that you can go in the market easily and buy with a foreign currency. And so there are countries, but that is more of a rule of law problem than an economic problem. Because if you have a law that says single currency, clearly the police supposed to do their work. So it's more of a police failure, but not an economic policy failure.
No, I agree. And those countries that I mentioned, the Nigeria, the Ghana, where there's black market, you don't use the US dollar to buy anything. They're just people who exchange it. That's it. But you will never be able to pay anything in US dollars. They will not accept it. So that's the point that I wanted to make there. But if you guys don't have anything else to say, it was a great show. Again, as I said, every time I sit on this show, I learn a lot from you guys. So thank you for being on the show, and for all of you in our social media verse, like we always say, whether you are for dual currency or single currency, or you're in the middle, regardless of the fact, we're all Liberians, and whether we do that now or we push it, we kick the can down the road, we will all still be Liberians. That's one thing that always remain the fact. And without further ado, we will see you guys here next Saturday, same time, same place. Ciao.
See ya.
All right, guys.
Bye.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.